So today we decided that Devin and I have decided that we're going to take a little bit of a field trip with you guys. And I'm just watching my speed because I think there's a police car behind me. We're going to take a bit of a field trip with you guys today. I think his name is John Reed. I think it's John. It's John anyway. John asked, I saw on the comments from yesterday's video, which was Wednesday's video, when we were going to the Titanic graveyard. And I decided that today is just as good a day as any, and we might as well go today. I am not doing, we're starting a new math lesson for homeschool, but I think I need to wait till next week, so I like to do it in a good stretch of days, not have a break in between, so we get it down pat. Devin loves the Titanic, and we haven't been there for a bit, so we thought we would go. Now, there's one cruise ship in right now. There's one more coming, so I'm hoping that there won't be any tourists around there. If there are, then we'll just deal with it, but hopefully there won't be anybody there. So, there's a few cemeteries in Halifax that have Titanic people, victims from the Titanic, buried at them. There's a Jewish cemetery and another Catholic cemetery, but we're going to go to the one where most of the people are buried. And some of them are in unmarked graves, and some of them have their names. And yeah, it's a pretty sobering sight when you're actually there seeing it. It's nothing, of course, like the movie. What happened was not at all like the movie. So I'm assuming that you've all heard of the Titanic, but it sank April 15th, 1912. The people that survived were rescued by the Carpathia, which is a cable ship, I believe, and brought to Halifax. And Halifax was sort of the center for where the morgue was set up and everything. And I guess some people were buried there, and other people, like the Astors and whatnot, were, if they ever found anybody, were taken somewhere else, or buried where their families were. What else? A couple of years ago, of course, when they had the 100th anniversary of the sinking, they had a big thing downtown where people were dressed up and reenacting some of the characters from the Titanic. And so where Jeremy works, he does a lot of reenactments, and he has costumes. So Robin, my daughter, dressed up in costume, and my husband dressed up in costume, and my youngest, Devin, who's a Titanic freak, dressed up as a first-class child passenger. And his picture, some of their pictures were in papers in Japan and New Zealand and all over the world. So that was kind of neat to see your child's picture in Japan. Anyway, they were all representing first class. There was nobody representing anybody that would have been in steerage, which sort of bothered me a little bit, because the ones in steerage were the ones that mostly died from hitting the iceberg. So anyway, sorry, it's very hard to talk and drive at the same time when I'm trying to hold a coherent thought together. So anyway, so that's a little bit of what we're going to go and see, and I'm just hoping there won't be a crowd of people, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Okay, so over here we have, sorry they're cutting the grass today, over here we have the Titanic burial site. There's no cruise ship here yet, so we're lucky. It's raining though, so we'll just go have a look and see. Yeah, we'll have a look and see what you think. Hopefully he's going to be done soon and you can still hear me okay. But anyway, here's some of the grave sites here. And you can see it's well worn where people have walked. This person here, there's a person that just has a number. Nobody's been, they've never been identified or found, so they would just have, they've never been identified anyway. They probably have been found and are buried here, but they don't know who they were. All of these are like that, pretty much. You can see for the glare off the stone, it's pretty bright. This person was a butler on the ship. Obviously a butler to somebody, probably one of the private butler to somebody on the Titanic. Oh, it's so noisy here today. I'm so sorry. This is the grave of what was the unknown child. And when the unknown child was found, they called it our babe. So the man that carried his body and found him, they kind of held him pretty close, and it was really heart-wrenching actually when you see the pictures of it. But they have since identified who this child was, and his name was actually Sidney Leslie Goodwin. So now they know who he was through DNA testing, and that this grave always has stuff on it. So they've decorated it for Halloween, and teddy bears and money for luck and all that sort of stuff. It always has something on this grave when we've come out here. This particular grave, I guess all of them are buried here. I don't know, but they, let's see, Alma Paulson, age 29, wife of Nils Paulson, lost with 4 children. All of their children died on the Titanic. All of them. Sad. Oh, move your umbrella there, kid. So here's the second row that we're looking at right here of the victims of the Titanic. Here's one of the crew members that are buried here. Each man stood at his post while all the weaker ones went by and showed once more to all the world how Englishmen should die. I have no clue what this noise is over there. I'm really sorry. This one was erected by Bruce Ismay, who's very, very famous as the, I guess, the owner, sort of creator, somebody who had something very big to do with the Titanic. It's escaped me right now. I will look that up when I get back home. This man was apparently a minister. He died on board. So here we have Jay Dawson. Guess what? There was no Jack Dawson from the movie on the ship. So maybe James Cameron just saw this name and thought it was pretty cool. I don't know. But this person had nothing to do with the movie. Wasn't based on his life. Nothing at all. Just a coincidence. This one has something special on it, and I really don't know what for. There's his name. And there's the apparently all these big graves, these ones are smaller. All these bigger graves were people somehow do with the crew. I just overheard that. So these were all crew members here. I can't make this out with this camera. This person was from the University of New South Wales in Australia. And he's got a very big grave, so we'll have to look his name up when we get back. Arthur Gordon McRae.
Same up here. Only one person with those 3 initials. They were able to identify 4 more people. Now, James Cameron, when he walked through this graveyard, he had stated in the paper, I will not use any factual names or fictional characters. Like the captain, right? That was a real person, but remember when we got
Okay, we were just walking by a tour guide that was here, and I overheard him. I don't know if you heard him. I can't hear myself thinking, even for whatever is going on over here. It is so loud. Is there a train yard over there? I don't know what it is, Jared or Devin. Anyway, he was talking about these are guys coming off the cruise ship that are coming on private tours that are down there now. He was saying that James Cameron did walk through the cemetery. And what did he say? He didn't want to use any real names of people. I don't remember what he said now. Anyway, he's back there talking to them about the Jack Dawson grave and the J. Dawson. So maybe he just picked that name. I don't know. But anyway, and there's another interesting bit of trivia for you. James Cameron, the director of the movie, it's actually from not too far from where I grew up in Orangeville, Ontario. He lived in Caledon. His grandparents lived there, and I think he's been there quite a bit, spent a lot of his lifetime there. So the character Caledon Hockley is named after Caledon, where he grew up, and Hockley, which is Hockley Valley, which is where near Bill's T-Max lives, if you follow him. Anyway, there's one more interesting thing to show you in this cemetery, and we will get it on the way out. Whoa, sorry about that, guys. Okay, focus. Okay, here we are at part of the entrance to the cemetery here. This is just a little bit about the cemetery right here. Sorry, hoping you can read this okay. I'm kind of just skimming down in case you want to read this. Ooh, it's getting short. It's getting smaller. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay, there we go. Bruce Ismay. Okay, in the outer curved line of graves, you will notice that one of the large gravestones is dedicated to the memory of Ernest Edward Samuel Freeman. The gravestone was erected by J. Bruce Ismay to commemorate a long and faithful service. Although Ernest Freeman was chief deck steward, he was also a favorite employee of Ismay, the managing director of the White Star Line. That's who he was. Ismay's father founded the White Star Line in 1869. Ismay survived the disaster. Perhaps motivated by both guilt and admiration, Ismay had the following lines inscribed on his Freeman's gravestone. He remained at his post of duty, seeking to save others, regardless of his own life, and went down with the ship. Okay, there's a bit about the unknown child. Who is a known child now? So this is who they thought the child was, Gustav Leonard Paulsen. But they actually found out after DNA testing that he was Sidney Leslie Goodwin. And all 8 members of their family died, all of them. Every single one. That's so awful. Probably in steerage. There you go. There's a bit about the graves at the cemetery. Okay, so in this section right here, this section I guess right here, it's an unmarked grave. And this is where they buried unidentified victims of the Halifax Harbor explosion, which happened the 6th of December 1917. And I'll give you some more information and maybe something you can watch on this when I get home, because there's a really good movie video about this. But anyway, 2 ships, the Mont Blanc and the Emo, were going into the harbor and they crashed in the fog, and the one ship was carrying munitions fully loaded for the war, and it exploded, and it was the biggest explosion before the nuclear explosions happened. It blew all the water out of the harbor. This whole area, almost all of Halifax, the city, all these old buildings down here were flattened, and pieces of the ships were found all over the place, and it was horrible. And so there were so many people they couldn't identify, they just buried them right here. So not many people, I think, know that this is over here, but anyway, it's still a very important part of Halifax's history, one of the most important parts of Halifax's history, I would say. Okay, so we're back home, and let's just do a little updating about our field trip. Of course, the Carpathia, the ship that I mentioned that was first on the scene of after the Titanic sank, actually took the survivors to New York. The ships that came into Halifax were the Mackie Bennett and the Minia. And there was a couple of other ships, but those are the 2 most famous ones that were there. So if you want to research this, you can, and the Halifax connection to the Titanic, you can look up www.novascotia.ca/Titanic/connection. And that should help you. I have to try and remember to put these on links on his Facebook, his YouTube page. Yeah, so that's the one thing. So there's a picture there. I'm sorry, I've got a little dinky computer here. That's the Mackie Bennett, and they recovered 306 bodies from the loss of the Titanic. And I can imagine that would have been a really awful job to do that. So let's see what else we can find here. Okay, and another little bit of information here. The gravestones that we looked at, the plain little sort of headstone type thing, some of them with just a number, they were paid for by the White Star Line. And the bigger ones, like there was the big cross and the one for the unknown child, the personalized ones were paid for by families and friends and groups, and they commissioned them. And I'm going to see if I can find out what I can find out about that Italian one that had that special plaque on it. You know, the more I read things and hear things, the more I never know what is true and what is not. In the cemetery, I showed you the plaque that said the original name of the unknown child that died was something different, Paulson or something like that. And this website, this is Wikipedia, it says it was originally identified as 13-month-old Aino Viljami Panula of Finland. So, yeah. So nobody seems to know who it was, but now it is definitely 19-month-old Sidney Leslie Goodwin who died there, and his shoes are actually at the museum. And the grave marked J. Dawson. J. Dawson was actually a coal shoveler. He shoveled coal into the furnaces, or the boilers, on the Titanic. So, and James Cameron says that he had no idea who he was. Nothing, had nothing to do with him. And of course, after the movie came out, all kinds of people came out in 1997 and left ticket stubs and flowers and everything else on his grave, but he didn't have anything to do with the movie. So there you go. There's a little bit of trivia about that. He was a coal shoveler in the Titanic, and he wasn't the glamorous person in the movies. Let me see. What else? What else do we have to clear up, Devin? Let me just... Oh, the things you learn, the things you learn. Apparently, that tour guide that I overheard was also wrong in his comments about Jack Dawson. So, the real Jack Dawson, Joseph Dawson, was a 23-year-old trimmer, a coal trimmer, a person who evens out the piles of coals from Dublin, Ireland. And rumor had it that he was the inspiration for the Jack Dawson character, but James Cameron had named Leonardo DiCaprio's character before he knew that there was actually a J. Dawson on the ship. So you can choose which story you like. That's like 3 different stories I've heard about Jack Dawson. Or Joseph Dawson. It's Joseph Dawson. It's not Jack, it's Joseph. This is so confusing. Anyway. And the other thing I just learned is the reason the graves at the cemetery are in a curved shape instead of in a straight line is to sort of copy the curving lines of a ship. So that's why they're in a curved shape like that. So anyway, you can believe whatever you want about the J. Dawson, but his name was Joseph. And I'm tired, and it has nothing to do with the movie. There you go. That's cleared up. Is that cleared up? I don't know if it's cleared up or not.
I think so. Maybe.
Okay, and there we have Joseph Bruce Ismay. We'll clear this up too. He was the English businessman who was the chairman and the managing director of the White Star Line of steamships. He was the highest ranking White Star official among the 712 survivors. So yeah, I think he got a little bit, a bit of criticism for some of this stuff. And anyway, that's who he is right there. And I'm going to go see if I can find the video for you on the Halifax explosion if you want to watch it. Another interesting, why is this here? There. Another interesting fact about the cemetery is that, hi Mixie, the violinist who was playing on the Titanic as it sank, he's buried there, John Law Hume, so keep an eye out for that name. He's buried at the cemetery, and he's 21 years old, and his fiancée survived and his unborn baby, so that's tragic. The whole thing's tragic and sad, especially when you're sitting there looking at all these graves that all passed away on the same day and met the same fate. Okay, this is actually from a blog, I think. I think it's a blog. It's called gypsynester.com. And just finding some information. I guess they toured here, and we saw the grave for Mrs. Paulson. And her 4 children were traveling to go to unite with her husband in Chicago. The husband was a tram conductor in Chicago and stayed for 2 years to bring his family to join him, and they all died on the ship. So yeah, go to gypsynester.com. It's really an interesting website for this stuff. Okay, the grave that was the minister grave from Curran Rectory in Clones, Ireland. He was a clerk on the Titanic. He worked as a clerk. Okay, so I am going to show, I'm going to post the link on when Jeremy puts this video onto YouTube, so you can have a look if you want of the video of the Halifax explosion as well. It's the video that they actually show at the museum, and it's really quite astounding when you see what happened here and in 1917, and it's a really interesting video to watch. And it's just is just when I just think about it, because so many people just saw the ship on fire and they all ran. Some of the kids were on their way to school, and some of the people were at home, and they all, of course, looked out their windows to see what was happening, and then it exploded, and it was just complete devastation. So now you look at Halifax and would never know it happened here, of course, but it's still a big part of. It's probably the biggest thing that's happened here, like that anyway. Next to, of course, the Titanic victims being brought here because it was the nearest port of call to do that. So anyway, sorry for this rambling video. I'm yabbering on and on, correcting things, finding things that aren't true, finding different sources for different things, and it's frustrating actually when you can't, everybody seems to have a different version. So anyway, what I tend to do is find the number of versions that match up the same, and that's the one I go with. Anyway, so that's a little bit of the Titanic history. If you will one day go to the museum, and they have all kinds of interesting artifacts from the Titanic there. Yes, I'll post the links when I get them, and then you can have a look at this other stuff. And hope you enjoyed that field trip. I'm so sorry about the noise there. I don't know, it wasn't just the lawnmowers. There was some kind of generator thing going on there, and it was so loud I don't even know if you'd be able to hear me. And I couldn't exactly yell because there were people there, and it's, you know, to be respectful and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, so there's the Titanic Titanic cemetery. I cannot find Devin's picture as the cabin boy, so I'll have to see if I have it around here. You weren't a cabin boy. You were a first-class passenger, weren't you? Were you a cabin boy somewhere else? I'm thinking about the tall ship thing with Jeremy. Yes, so, boy, man, I'm talking here and I don't even know what the heck I'm talking about. So yeah, we'll go to the museum at some point. I can't find his picture. There was something else I was going to say, and I don't know what it was. But anyway, it's totally, you know, when we've seen the Titanic movie, and it's, you know, it's made some of it's true, but most of it's somebody's imagination. But I'm telling you, when you go and stand there and see that these people, this was not a movie, this was real life, and this really happened, and nobody knows half of the stories of these people because they don't know who they are. It's pretty sad, but of course it's not even the only ship that's happened to. There's the Empress of Ireland and the Lusitania and all of those ships that people don't always think much. Titanic seems to be the most famous one for some reason. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now because I'm going to get nasty comments about how I talk too much. And so, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. And, yeah, now back to you, Jeremy.